on
make
this
a pretty good
episode of Who
list,
Dem.
but you can tell on the Hill that people went into politics and not fashion,
Yeah.
for sure. But I would say that's what people like about my videos is that they aren't well dressed a lot of the time. But yeah, I would not say that people get elected to Congress for their fashion choices. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Who Dem podcast. My name is Damian Galvan, and as always, joined by my wonderful co-host Gil Cisneros, representative from California's 31st District, and a very special guest today, Lauren Green, aka Lauren on Capitol Hill. Thanks so much for joining us today, Lauren. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pretty crazy past couple of months with a lot of different changes, obviously, new administration coming in. How have you found yourself adjusting?
It's definitely been an adjustment just in the pace of media. I also switched jobs in February to a more fast-paced breaking news. So switching to a breaking news organization while switching over to a Trump administration has been a really fast pace, but I feel like I'm starting to get a hang of it, but I am very ready for recess next week.
Yeah, I can imagine. And Representative, your wife has some experience in journalism as well. How has she been reacting to everything that's going on and kind of the fast-paced news cycle that Trump has kind of thrown us in?
Well, I guess fortunately for her, she doesn't have to follow or react to all the news stories going in, right? And she's not no longer working in news. She's more focused on her fast changing or moving moments or the boys' schedules, really, right? Kind of doing that. But she does have the news on constantly. She's still got the that news mind, that sharp news mind to kind of how to react, how to respond, what the stories are of the day of those. So I actually do rely on her a lot for a lot of different things.
Yeah, that's awesome. It must, I don't know if Lauren, you know this, but we've talked about it on the show previously. Actually, Jackie has 2 Emmys for broadcast journalism, which is obviously an amazing feat.
Yeah.
I'm super proud of her for that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so how's the transition been from you were with the National Journal before,
Yes.
now you're with the
Yeah.
Washington Examiner?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, so National Journal is a policy-focused paper, whereas the Examiner is more just day-to-day news. And so I've liked both a lot. I was doing House and Senate before, and now I'm only House, so it's been fun to get to know the members more, be it every vote series, and just kind of keep up with the intricacies of the House and learning procedure. I would say that procedure has been the hardest thing to learn in the House, but it's been fun because you get to see the inner workings of everything in a way that most people will never see. And I like being able to provide that insight to people, especially through my TikToks. I think that it shows a different side of things. People read our stories and see what's happening in the news, but they don't really see the behind the scenes or what staffers are doing or just like the day-to-day of members and staffers and what the Hill is like. And I think that when people see an insight, it helps them kind of trust my work more because they put a face to the name and like see a person behind it instead of just, I don't know, the news can be overwhelming. So I think that it helps bring it back down to earth.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that that's one of the best things about new media is that you really get like insight into the actual people behind it. Like our tagline for the show is trying to get the personality behind the politician.
Yes.
Like that's super huge, especially with social media where you can kind of like connect with anyone and really get an insight into what's going on behind the scenes. I'm curious, Representative, what was the biggest adjustment for you? Obviously, you've been now back on the Hill twice. What was it for you? Was it learning the procedures? Was it just meeting all the other members? What was that change like?
Coming back again, I don't really think there was much of an adjustment. I kind of knew what was expected. I knew what was going on. I will tell you the big difference, though, is kind of being in the minority now when the last time we were in the majority. So I feel like there are a lot of things now that I'm like, what are we voting on? Or really, that makes no sense. Or like, really, refrigerator requirements? Or are we really taking this away from people? Or really kind of, don't they know that's going to hurt the environment if we kind of do that? Yeah. So that's kind of probably been the biggest change right there, right? I'm voting no a lot more than I did the last time, I will say that.
And On that same note, I'm curious too because obviously social media is giving this insight into Capitol Hill that we've never really had before. Have you seen more and more? I guess this is a question just for both of you broadly. Have you guys seen like more and more just representatives filming TikToks, whether that be in like the Rayburn building or like actually outside of Congress, like just watching them walk around with their
I mean, I think that the social media aspect, right, is a lot more, busy about it, right? That wasn't something that we're like, oh, you need to get online, you need to kind of do this. It was more about the last time I was here was, hey, reach out to like, your traditional media stations, right? Go, when they would have kind of like these shoots after like the State of the Union or this or that, right? It was always like, oh, like Spectrum News is here, CNN's here, like KNBC in Los Angeles, they're here. That's what it is. But now it's like, oh, now we've got a group of influencers here that are there, and we want you to go to the room and talk to them. That's kind of really been one of the big differences there. And I got to say, I'm a little disappointed. You haven't asked me to be part of yours on one of your shots
to do
there
one.
on the, what is it, Fit on the Hill, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm like, I can't believe she hasn't asked me to do that yet.
No, we'll get one on the
I like to
books.
think of myself as one of the better dressed members of Congress, but but we'll definitely have to make sure we schedule that and find some
sure.
time to do it.
No, it's been such a difference because I feel like I've noticed even just since I started doing the TikToks, I would stop members at votes. That's how I originally started doing it. I would just grab them, and it was kind of like just right after votes, I would ask them, and now it's gotten to the point where everyone has digital directors now, which I think is probably a new-ish position on the Hill with social media.
Right.
And I have digital directors reaching out to me all the time to set them up, which I never thought I would be being reached out to set up stuff like that. I feel like it's kind of the opposite from a journalist point of view, which has been cool. But I've also gotten to see the side of political influencers. And I think that it's not hard. It's cool being on the side of a journalist and the side of social media, doing both, because a lot of people they see like political influencers on TikTok and they don't know that they aren't journalists that have the same ethical standards that we hold ourselves to. And so I think that it's cool to have a platform that has media literacy and journalism ethics while also like getting to hang out with y'all and put y'all on social media in like a more influencer way.
So I got a question for you. I mean, obviously you do the two jobs. You're like I said, a social media influencer. You're a journalist working for, I guess what we'll call a traditional newspaper.
Yes.
Right? When people come to you or they see you, right, do they know that you're a journalist, or do they just kind of know you now that, hey, you're Lauren from social media? I mean, do you have, I mean, obviously we just talked, right? You have the Capitol one where you're talking about the clothes and what people are wearing. Do you have other sites too that you have where you're just talking about news?
I haven't gotten too much into the news, but there's two House reporters that I report with, and we're going to start a podcast in a few weeks.
Great.
So that is like going to be our new outlet to talk about news and kind of bridge that. Right now I have them pretty separate because I think that sometimes it's hard as a journalist to not come off as like endorsing one thing whenever you're using social media as well.
Right.
So I've kind of been trying to find a good balance of being able to talk about news while also having members on my social media without seeming like I favor one side or the other. And so that's been a balance that I've kind of been learning and navigating, but hopefully the podcast is a good in-between in a way that I can highlight on my social media, but also gets news across with those like hard facts rather than just more of an echo chamber that people get from influencers on their For You page.
Right. So you're actually going to talk news issues, topics, and things like that, and kind of take a more of a journalistic point of view on the podcast.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
And
we have to be on there one day.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're gonna do members, so I'll definitely reach out.
Great.
I'm curious about the fashion side of it. I wasn't like a person that was really into fashion or, like thrifting and getting into it until I got into college. What was that like for you? Because I feel like it's one of those things where on social media, you're always trying to find a niche, but also a niche that hasn't really been like explored. And I feel like the fashion thing was just so perfect. Like it is something that I don't see anyone else doing, especially with representatives. Like, how did
Mhm.
that idea come about? But more broadly, like, how did your interest in fashion start?
Yeah, I love telling people this story. I started on the Hill as a journalist the week that Kevin McCarthy was ousted,
Mm-hmm.
which was an insane week to start as a journalist on the Hill. So I kind of just got thrown in, and I think it was 21 days that they debated the speakership, and we were in the Longworth basement every single day for those 21 days. And those were my first 3 weeks. And I remember sitting down there for hours and hours and hours at a time. And I was making friends down there because I had just started. And as members would come out of the meetings, we would rate their outfits.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I kind of got the idea. I was like, I haven't ever seen people talk about politicians' outfits, but we were sitting there and we had this game where we would talk about their outfits because we'd been sitting down there for hours. We had nothing else to talk about at that point. And so that's how I got the idea. And then Jeff Jackson was in Congress at that point, all over TikTok. And I kind of just had the idea to ask him. I was like, I know he would know what it was. So I asked him. It did well. And I don't think that in politics, fashion isn't really thought about.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can look at some of the members there, and there's not a lot of thought put into what they're wearing, right?
Exactly. But I kind of think that that's what I like about it is that
Yeah.
whenever I do videos with members, a lot of times their staff will be like, what should they wear? What should they say? And I'm like, don't tell them what to wear. Don't tell them what to say. That's what people love is that they don't know what an outfit video is. They don't know what like true fashion is, like what most influencers would do. And that's what
Right.
people like about it because it comes off so genuine and honest that it's not so put together, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got this jacket from Macy's, or
Exactly. I think it definitely makes
Yeah.
members seem human because
Right.
it's like they're shopping at the same stores that we're shopping at,
Yeah.
which is cool. But I worked at Texas Monthly and before I moved to DC. So going from a magazine to hard news was kind of a difficult transition because I was used to that fun
Right.
reporting, and this kind of gives me an outlet to do that while also doing hard news.
Yeah.
Are you a Longhorns fan? Longhorns fan?
Yes, I am. I actually graduated this weekend from UT with my master's.
Oh, that's
So,
awesome. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
welcome.
Yeah, great.
yeah. So yes, I am a UT fan.
Awesome. That's great. Yeah, I'm a Falcons fan, and we have Bijan Robinson. I'm sure that you were familiar with him, and so it's just awesome. Great university, produces great athletes, and obviously great journalists. So
Thank you. Thank you.
absolutely. The point about representatives asking like what they should wear or trying to figure out how to look best on social media too has been, I feel like, one of those interesting transitions from legacy media to social media, where like there's a lot of traditional PR training where it's like you're supposed to be very polished and very like clean cut and present yourself as like the perfect person.
Mhm.
And social media calls for like the exact opposite.
Yeah.
It's like, where can I present myself as like just, not a politician, as as a person, as a father, as a worker, as a business owner. So I think that it presents like some unique challenges there in trying to kind of like overcome that barrier. What are some of those challenges that you faced?
I would say just like what I was saying, as a journalist, it's hard to balance that. A lot of political influencers on social media affiliate with one side, whereas as a journalist, that doesn't fit with journalism ethics. I think that that's probably the hardest balance, doing both. But I do think it's given me a really cool perspective into how comms has changed in politics. I think that, like you said, it used to be so polished and put together, and now people are looking for the exact opposite. And so seeing comms teams transition into that has been like one of my top interests in reporting, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, you're still relatively new, right? I mean, you've only been, what, a year now or less than a year?
About 2 years.
About 2
Yeah.
years on the Hill. And, but I guess you're kind of, maybe you got in here as that transition was starting, but you are kind of starting to see more and more where, the more traditional media is just really kind of, the ratings aren't as high on TV
Yeah.
as they used to be. There's no, people, America used to trust Walter Cronkite, and you just don't have anybody like that out today. And it is more and more of that is going to, like you said, social media.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're right in the thick of it as it kind of transitions in from one aspect to the other. I mean, really, where do you kind of see it going in the future?
That's so hard because I talk to some, did my master's in advertising, so I feel like I have kind of that comms brain along with news. And some people I talk to think that it's gonna get to a point where it starts to transition back into classic comms, but then you talk to other people and they're like, it's gonna be social media all the way. I feel like it's gonna end up somewhere in the middle. It gets to a point where with social media, there's just such an abundance of information, and I mean, like it doesn't matter which side you're on. You're in an echo chamber of your
Right.
own views, and things can only get so polarizing and partisan that it's going to come to a point where, not that it's going to crash and burn, but it's hard. Like most people don't even see the other side anymore.
Right.
So I think it's going to have to come back a little bit to the middle to allow people to see other points of views, because you can only get so far away from the middle without something. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah, and
I mean, well, Damien, we've talked about it on the show here a couple of times. Like it's still new to me, right? The aspect of it and everything. I mean, to me, Facebook was a way to connect with old friends. Now it's kind of grown into something totally different. And I think like you were saying, right? There's these echo chambers that people get into, and just don't think that's good for the country.
Yeah.
And good for people, right? That they're only hearing one view and they don't want to hear both sides, and you're not getting traditional journalism in the sense where they're just kind of giving you the facts and what it's about, and there's a lot of things that are out there that can be very negative. So I hope we do kind of come back to the middle there,
Yeah.
kind of right, where people are going to be more willing and kind of. I mean, I still like to. I do it online now, but I still like to read the newspaper
Yeah.
and kind of. I read I'll check out the various different ones and stuff, and I got about 4 or 5 apps on my phone.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of the thing that's changed about it, right? But I think it's important, right, to make sure that we still kind of have journalists like that that are going to be out there to go and get stories and just where the facts is the most important thing of what they're reporting on, rather than the opinion of one side or the other.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's hard. In DC, it's a lot easier to have media literacy and get those facts because you know where to get them. I think that I'm from Texas, and so I see it a lot whenever I go home, is that with the rise of social media, people are getting their news on social media. There's so much information to intake that they don't even know where to get the right information. And so media literacy has been such an issue because you don't even know where to look anymore.
Right.
And I think that bringing it back to the middle would help those people find that. But it's such a different world in DC. Like people here know where to look. And I think that to an extent, people here have a better trust of Hill reporters because you see them on a day-to-day basis and you have relationships with them. But people across the country can't put a name to our faces at all.
Right.
Which does make it a lot harder for them to trust us, and it makes it easier for them to trust somebody on social media that they're seeing.
All right. Yeah, you're sorry. They see their video all the time.
Yeah.
They, it pops up. They're doing maybe 5, 6 a week or whatever, or probably more. And it's just, they build relationships with these people,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like I said, my wife worked in television news for like a long time, but I mean, even now she's like, TikTok and Instagram and other things, watching the reels and the different news, the news stories that are coming up through that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is just to me, it's still mind-boggling that this is all
I
happening.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I kind of have, I guess, a different perspective on it going back to the middle. I think that like with social media, it's just so hard to put that genie back in the bottle, and especially now that obviously very involved in the space with like doing podcasts and whatnot and what we do here at the Ox Institute. And it's been really interesting in kind of seeing how legacy media has also been adapting to new media. And in particular with like CNN, I think this was like a couple months ago, they fired like 600 employees,
Yeah.
6% of their workforce, and they are moving them into new media. And where like it's really interesting because I like hyper analyze
Yeah.
like all of these TikToks and all of these videos from all of these different accounts. It's super interesting because CNN used to like do their clips, and the way that they would do their clips is it would be like the actual broadcast itself cut up, but now they'll have like the journalist, once they're off air, hold like a Rode microphone
Yes.
and like speak into it, and they're making it like they're bringing down the production value to increase the relatability. And it's just so interesting to see how fast they've been able to kind of adapt, but also they're still bringing some of that, I wouldn't call it baggage, but some of those tactics from legacy media that I think don't translate as well to social media.
No, totally. I follow a bunch of journalists on TikTok, and I have really noticed that whenever they just pull clips from being on air on broadcast and post it, it doesn't do nearly as well as when Caitlin Collins is just outside the White House talking on her microphone. All of those go viral, and then I'll see clips just pulled from on air stuff, and they don't do, like, they just kind of hit a wall,
Yeah.
which is crazy.
Yeah. Shout out Caitlin Collins, by the way, doing great.
Yeah. Shout out Caitlin Collins.
No, yeah, like obviously she's one of those people that I actually don't know off the top of my head how old she is, but she looks like she be maybe Gen Z, younger millennial.
Yeah, I think she's like 30.
Yeah, that would make sense, and
Yeah.
so she's more, I feel like, well equipped to kind of help CNN in that transition or be able to be present on social media. Even like I've been starting to get some of her tweets now, and like even the way that she's tweeting is it's very strategic, and it's cool to see. I feel like for the first time, legacy media kind of start to respect the new media game, because I feel like for a long time it was kind of just like, oh, like look at these YouTubers and these TikTokers and these Instagrammers, like they're just making their silly little videos. Fine, we're over here in suits.
No, it's crazy. I did a video with Pete Buttigieg a few weeks ago, and he had actually come into town to meet with content creators, and it's so mind-blowing that members and secretaries are taking the time to just meet up with content creators at this point, like, or the DNC and RNC all hosted content creators. That's crazy.
Yeah. Even the White House press briefing room, right? Like they have a podcast briefing room now, which is just, I mean, that's wild. Like a whole room dedicated to content creators who ask the worst questions on earth, but nonetheless, they are there.
It's also crazy. I have been doing a lot of stories on influencers who are running for Congress. There's a handful now.
Right.
I actually I'm from Houston, and Isaiah Martin's running for that Texas seat, and I knew him prior to him running, and he's talked to me a lot about just how they campaign, and it's crazy because they can spend so much less money campaigning because they already have such a wide following. He was like, we essentially have such low campaign costs that we have so much money in the bank because we don't have to do text messages or mailing. We just put stuff out on social media, and it has a greater reach than anything else we could do.
Yeah, it is. I would say when I ran this time, right, one of the big differences was that we didn't do any television commercial. Well, the first time we did, right, and the you're spending all this money, especially in a large market like LA, which covers several counties. To just try and get time on the air, and it's like you said, you're covering this large market, but you're only trying to connect with a few people in your area there, but yet you got to spend the cost of of reaching the whole area. At this time around with our digital, we did ads and stuff, but we didn't do any on TV. We didn't put on TV at all. It was all like, okay, we can go to like social media, like on YouTube. Even like the apps, like streaming on TV.
Yeah.
Whether it was you got the DirecTV app or the YouTube or other different ones that you can go and put them on there, and just be more strategic and more specific about the area that you want to go to, rather than having to do a whole television commercial, over a whole media market that you're not even trying to reach, and it's so much. I mean, the price that you're paying is so much better too, right? It's not as expensive. Yeah.
No, not nearly.
Yeah, it is totally changing. I think the way people campaign and everything, and what you're going to see in the future.
Yeah.
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 I can't remember her name off the top of my head, or her last name off the top of my head, but it's her first name's Kat, and she's running in Illinois. I can never pronounce it.
Yes, it's like Abu. I can't pronounce it either.
Yeah. But I saw that she has saved so much money from her social media presence that she's now doing like food drives and like feeding homeless people, which, like, talk about the Democratic Party. Like, that is like actually just going and like not just doing, saying that you're, when I get into Congress, I'm going to help, homeless people, or I'm going to do this. It's actually like doing it. And then on top of that, it's like two birds with one stone. It's so beautiful because you can do that, and then you can make it an advertisement. You can make it a TikTok clip. And now it's gaining, like, the reason that I know this is because it's on Instagram, and I saw it on Instagram. So, like, even though it's not like, oh, I'm not wasting money, but I'm giving the money away, like I'm not spending it on advertising. Inadvertently, it's still advertising.
It's crazy, and they're reaching millions of people without spending $1.
Yeah,
Which is
exactly.
wild.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and I think that I saw the former CEO of Google kind of talking about it too, and this was back, I think, even before the election, and he was talking about how at some point, like, politicians are going to realize that ultimately, like, their job is to connect with people, and that the easiest way to do that is social media. And I think this past election has really just blown that up. And I mean, even like seeing, I can't, I don't think this was the case under the Biden administration, but like seeing the Department of Defense, like Twitter account, like tweeting racism, and like seeing the Department of Justice, like tweeting and like responding to like other influencers and like content creators, and like very clearly seeing that the White House's Twitter is run by 25-year-olds max,
Yeah.
26-year-olds like maximum. So yeah, it's cool, but it's definitely, I think, in some ways also a little concerning.
It is so different. I've noticed a lot recently that committees in the House, their Twitters are crazy on both sides. Like, they're dropping F-bombs, replying to people.
Yeah, there's been some kind of like stuff that's come out that you would not traditionally be like, okay, that's not good. That's bad. And very kind of like, I want to say aggressive.
Yeah.
And really kind of just flat out rude on some of these things.
But they do so well.
Yeah.
I did a story on when the DNC's Twitter account, the Democrats, revamped their social media. And I was talking to some of their socials teams. Though the posts that are aggressive and use more cuss words or like stupid jokes get millions of views comparatively to something that, like, whenever they posted that list of the 5 things they did that week, and it just flattened or didn't do well. They posted a tweet. I think they responded to the Tesla at the White House, got, I think, something like 11 million views, which is wild.
Yeah. That is one of the things that's changing too, right? It's there was a story that I saw like last week about how, members aren't watching their language anymore, and they're I guess I can say F-bomb, but I can say fuck on here too, right?
Yeah.
Or they're saying shit and bullshit and just kind of all kinds of different words, right? They're talking like sailors, right?
Yeah.
But it really is kind of how that, I guess, is kind of changing other things as well too, right? It's to how people are responding and how they're talking and how their language, and there is kind of more of a not so, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but like, it's like, oh, you must act dignified and respectful in there, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of, this is a position you hold. You got to uphold the position and kind of live up to it, and kind of, so you must be refined in your approach to it. But that's kind of like out the window now.
Yeah. It's I feel like people are craving that genuine connection with their members now, or at least I think the younger generations definitely are, which is such a large shift from the older generations.
Yeah. My question, Representative, is I get the way that we would put it in our generation is, do you fuck with that? Do you like that? That's what it is now.
It is. I was in the Navy, right? So, and I spent a pretty good amount of years in the Navy, and I could talk like a sailor, like the best of them, and I did, right? But I kind of felt like coming out of that I needed to kind of change my approach, and I was very conscious of it for like a long time, especially when I would talk to women about like trying not to cuss, trying not to do that, right? To kind of be more respectful and not just flat out being blunt and telling somebody something. And now I kind of feel like maybe I can go back to the way I used to talk, right? Kind of being blunt and kind of cussing all the time and saying shit and fuck. And, I mean, in the Navy, like fuck was like an adjective, right? It's like you used it to describe everything. And I think kind of like, maybe that's the way I just need to start talking again.
Yeah. Just unleash on Twitter.
Yeah. Just kind of, fuck, just crazy and nuts. But yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's also I was going to transition this into a question about Kamala HQ and how that kind of went on during the election because
Yeah,
I think something interesting about Kamala HQ is that they were really good at promoting positive content and they were kind of good at rage baiting and they did do some good things where they
totally.
would get Trump's, but they were never as like vulgar. I feel like
No.
they were never as aggressive. They were very much like good at doing the social media thing and good at getting reactions, but they weren't as aggressive as now we're seeing politicians become.
Totally. I feel like they followed the trends to a T and they would be on it. Like a trend would come out and they would have it out. But I agree that I looked at the TikTok all the time because I love reporting on the shift to from influencers to campaigns, and they really did not take the aggressive approach at all.
Yeah, I'm also curious. I just don't. One thing, and again, this is kind of going back to like the legacy media tendencies manifesting themselves in new media attempts. I don't get why Kamala HQ stopped. Like, I understand that she did lose the election, but the point of being on social media, right, is consistency, or
Yeah.
at least a major facet of being on social media is consistency.
Mhm.
And like Kamala HQ in and of itself became a brand.
Yeah, it
Um,
did.
and so it just to me, it's like, okay, yeah, you lost the election, but it was so effective at mobilizing young people and getting them engaged, particularly on the left and like liberal young people. Where it's just like I couldn't like they should be right now tweeting and making TikToks about things that the Trump administration is doing, in my opinion.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they'll do. Maybe if and when she announces something, maybe they'll fire it back up. But I'm not sure why.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think it just also, I mean, like, even if it was not her saying things, like it was just them, repurposing clips and, posting tweets or whatnot, I think it still would have been helpful for the Democratic Party at large, just because it was the first time, at least that I can think of, maybe outside of like Bernie Sanders, where mainstream politics and AOC was using
Mhm.
social media to actually like run their campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely something that I think we're going to start to see a lot of other politicians do too. The one that we brought up last week was Pete Buttigieg. Uh,
Mhm.
he's just been doing great in terms of his social
Oh
media.
my gosh.
He's been killing it for a while now. Like obviously now people are starting to bring it up, but I think it was like a year ago that he was on Jubilee. And
Yeah.
like he's been doing this for a minute. And it's really cool to even I don't know if you ever got the chance to watch like the 20v1 that he did. Representative, do you know what Jubilee is out of curiosity?
I do not. I do not.
Jubilee is like they're a new media company, and what they're famous for is they'll do a 20v1, right? So they'll take like 20 Republicans versus one liberal.
Uh-huh.
And they did that with Pete about a year
Mhm.
ago, and it blew up. And so basically, like it's a debate one at a time. Pete was sitting across from a conservative, and they would have like a couple minutes to debate him, or until all the other participants like wave a red flag. If it goes over half of the participants waving a red flag, they have to go out, and someone else comes in. And it's really interesting to see a politician be able to go in that format where it's extremely unscripted and
Mhm.
like any one of these people could go up there and just say some outlandish shit and Pete Buttigieg has to like keep his cool. But not only that, like he's great at responding and like making viral moments. I don't know if he's purposeful with it, but it's or if it's a facet of his personality, but Jubilee has been doing that I think for a while now, and they're starting to get a lot of notoriety for the things that they're doing, which is
Mhm.
cool.
I may have to check it out and
Yeah,
see what it is. But
we'll see.
yeah,
They film in Los Angeles too, so
yeah,
maybe
Yeah.
we'll have to have a 20v1 with Representative Cisneros.
yeah.
Buttigieg is definitely one of those people that you can just put him on media and he just does so well with it. I think that he's really good about coming off genuine on media. I've talked to a lot of people about his kind of direction behind media, and he's done it better than most people that I've reported on.
Why do you think that is?
I I think that he comes across as that genuine Midwest guy. I think that's why he's growing the beard. I think that's why he's dropped the jacket.
Hmm.
He comes across easily as that like genuine Midwest guy that's just kind of laid back, but then the second you throw a hard-hitting question at him, he can answer it very articulate.
Right.
Which is the best of both worlds in a politician.
No, I mean, he is very media savvy, right? And he's kind of, I think he's proven himself right in the traditional media world, kind of like going there and doing a lot of interviews. And I don't know if that's kind of helped him make the transition. I think he's great at interviewing. I mean, I guess on the other end, right, Donald Trump, who I don't think is very good at interviews at all, but, he's really, doing the Post and doing everything, right, has really gotten something that's really kind of, I think he's kind of driven it that way, right, as far as like going and talking on, I guess now it's Truth Social, before it was TikTok and Twitter. It's, people have kind of adapted to like both of those, right, to kind of see there, right? I think, I mean, the thought of doing a podcast, that we're doing now, like doing like 4 years ago, I never would have thought like that's something that we need to do or we should do, but it is kind of part of, I think, the media, our media world that we're in right now. It's just, it's just kind of like was the next step, right? It's like, oh, okay, well, yeah, let's start a podcast. Why not? Yeah.
Time for a quick message from our sponsors.
This episode of Who Dem is brought to you by Elect Dems Now. We all know that podcasts are the future. They give us the chance to connect with our elected officials like never before. That's why Elect Dems Now is committed to helping voters engage with the people who represent us. Supporting organizations that bring us closer to our representatives is crucial to advancing and advocating for the change we want to see. Whether it's $5 or $50, every donation to Elect Dems Now helps shape our future and ensures a country we can all be proud of. Your support sends a clear message to candidates and elected officials. Connecting with you means connecting with America. To contribute and make a difference, visit electdemsnow.org today. Your donation helps build a world where we are all connected. Paid for by Elect Dems Now, electdemsnow.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
I'm curious because this is going back to the fashion point. I hadn't noticed, I guess I hadn't started connecting the dots until you brought up that Pete Buttigieg was also growing out his facial hair. Did JD Vance bring back facial hair? Because I see Senator Chris Murphy now, he has facial hair too. Like there's a couple of them that are starting to grow out. I would like to say that JD Vance did not encourage me to grow out my mustache. But maybe somewhere subconsciously, the reason that I'm growing it out is JD Vance.
No, I had this thought last week about Chris Murphy, JD Vance, Pete Buttigieg, Senator Todd Young, like all of them are growing out their facial hair, and I feel like it's being perceived well by the public.
Yeah, because wasn't it that like before JD Vance, there hadn't been a vice president since like 1970 something that had even run with facial hair?
Something crazy like that.
And like no one had one since 1940 or something. So yeah, it's definitely. Do you think that? I mean, I don't know who would even be able to answer this question, but do you think that like that reflects anything in the American populace, like how they're feeling? Because the argument always was that, or at least the way that I heard it was that like facial hair is just like synonymous with authoritarianism in the United States, and like it's kind of the strongman perspective. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but like, what do you think is kind of driving this change back?
If I were to guess, I would put it more along the lines of what we were talking about with the social media. It's people aren't looking for that clean-cut politician anymore. They're kind of looking for someone with character and a little bit of oomph behind them. And I feel like the facial hair kind of goes hand in hand with that. It's a little bit less clean-cut, a little bit more relatable. It would be my guess if I were to take a guess.
Yeah, did you ever grow out your facial hair?
Yeah, I like to think I was ahead of my time, and they're just kind of like a couple years behind me. 2020, I did actually grow out, a beard, and I had it for a while, and I even kind of grew it out, and then I kind of took it down to like a goatee. Kind of had that for a little while.
Yeah.
But it's actually, to me, it's actually more difficult, I think, to kind of maintain kind of like a beard than it is actually to shave.
Yeah.
It takes you a little longer to shave in the morning, but to kind of make sure that it's kind of neat and kind of, that you don't, if you screw something up, right, it's like, okay, now I got to take it off. But, I think I did have one for a while, and I did do that. So I like to think, I set the trend like a couple years ago. They're just a few years behind. But now that I'm clean shaven, they'll all probably be clean shaven in a couple years as well.
Yeah,
Definitely.
you
Go
said the
back to that.
J.D. Vance inspired him to grow out.
Mhm.
No, yeah, that's a really good explanation with the authenticity bet. Because I hadn't thought about it like that, but yeah, I kind of guess that it does kind of show that side of a person's personality that you want on social media, where it's like, oh yeah, like he has a little bit of scruff on his face. He didn't shave this morning because he's a
Yeah.
human being and he does not wake up, in a suit, perfectly shaven. She doesn't wake up with a full face of makeup and earrings and jewelry. Like they're people that, I think that's also why the AOC, like her like sitting on her couch, just like, hey, like what's going on, everyone? This is what's happening, has like resonated so well because it's
Yeah.
like she's not trying to be clean cut. Clean
Yeah.
cut's the perfect way to put it.
Yeah, I think that another really good example that I've kind of noticed that too is Sarah Jacobs. Her TikTok does incredible, and she hops on and she does like I think she did a tutorial on how to do eyeliner. She'll hop on and make her quick dinner whenever she gets home from boats late on a Monday night, and it's so real and raw that most politicians don't show. And her TikTok has done phenomenal since they started it a few months ago.
Yeah. Who has the best jewelry in Congress, do you think?
Jewelry?
Jewelry, because our thing with our generation is I feel like guys are finally getting back into like wearing rings, wearing
Yeah.
necklaces, and like particularly young men are huge getting into the ring thing.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen like like besides a wedding band, I haven't seen
Yeah.
even Maxwell Frost. Like he's not.
Uh-uh.
No disrespect to Maxwell Frost, he's
No,
not.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't really think I've seen the jewelry on them too much. I think I think they would, I feel like most members would feel a little bit off wearing a bunch of jewelry, or especially the male members.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. Okay, so then broadly, who do you think has the best like fashion taste that you've got into to interview or just would like to interview maybe?
So I would say for males on the Hill, Rich McCormick has really good fashion. His suits are custom, so like, of course they're good. I think AOC is really well dressed. I like the intentionality behind the red lips, especially. I think that a long time ago, whenever I started following politics, whenever she first got in Congress, she talked about how she would wear the red lip whenever she gave floor speeches because red is a color of power and it made her feel more confident. So I kind of appreciate her intentionality behind dressing. So I would definitely put the two of them pretty high up there, but that also, they're two pretty young members in relation to Congress. But there's a good amount of members that show their personality.
I think, we're talking fashion on the Hill, right? And this is what I'm noticing. And like, I don't consider myself a fashion expert at all, but I do like to kind of, I feel like I'm at extremes, right? I'll either kind of dress like I wear three-piece suits. I like to have my suits kind of looking good and, like you said, kind of tailored. And,
Yeah.
And but I'm comfortable in shorts too.
Yeah.
I got to turn this off. Somebody's kind of ringing me right now. But I like to wear shorts and a t-shirt too, right? And be comfortable. And I think that's a big aspect of just kind of me being me. But the thing when you talk about like changing trends and fashion things, how you're seeing, right, is seeing a lot more cowboy hats.
Yes.
I will definitely say more on the other Republican side.
Yes.
I think, and I do it too, right? I think members kind of tend to come in on Mondays
Fly-ins.
when we're voting, fly-in days,
Yep.
a lot more casual.
Totally. And Thursdays.
Yeah, when they're leaving.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Like I won't put on a tie today.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot more people without ties where it was like you would never see that
Yeah.
at all, right? The beard thing too is coming, I think, more there, and you're seeing some like I think Van Orden from Wisconsin. He's got the big,
Yep.
the big beard. But yeah, I think you're kind of seeing that in men more. I mean, we had the jolly good Ginger, right? He's got like a big beard, and we're kind of starting to see, I think, more men kind of wearing these big kind of Santa Claus beards.
Yeah.
There, but I think. There are aspects I think are people are becoming more casual, but it's kind of like a nice casual to where it's like, okay, they're wearing jeans, but they're wearing like a blazer. They'll wear the cowboy hats, different things. And so it definitely is a different kind of style and different looks from what I seen like 4 or 5 years ago when I was here the first time, where it was more, still see a lot of blue suits, a lot of gray suits. I think the blues definitely show up on TV. The darker suits definitely show up on TV a lot better than I think some of the lighter suits do. But, I really got into wearing vests when I was here the last time, I think around 1920, and just kind of stuck with it, right? And I did it when I was at the Pentagon, and I think, I'm not wearing one today as I say that, right? But I think, very seldom will I ever wear a suit without a matching vest or like a vest that kind of goes with it. And I think it is kind of more of a different kind of trending thing, right? And too, like you see like, one of your Capitol fits that I saw you did with Gabe from New Mexico. And, I think you guys talked about his boots for like a long time, right? And about how that's kind of like a different thing, right? That you're seeing and stuff like that. But it is kind of, in one way or another, I think people are kind of I will say on the men's side, right, are paying more attention to what they're wearing and what they're doing and how they're putting things together. I mean, are you seeing that too?
Definitely, yeah. You see a lot of cowboy hats and cowboy boots. I've noticed that. I think I see a lot of sneakers now.
Yes.
Greg Landsman from Ohio always has great sneakers. We discuss his sneakers all the time. But I also think that DC is a little bit behind on the more nice casual trend. I think DC is getting there, but my mom used to wear business professional every day to work, and now she's business casual every day. She has all these business professional clothes, and I wouldn't say that DC is business casual yet by any means, but it's definitely not where business professional used to be.
Right. Well, we still have rules, right?
Yeah.
So you're still, like I said, you'll see more people without ties and stuff on the floor, but the rule is technically you're supposed to wear a tie if you're on the floor.
Yeah.
They won't let you speak unless you have a tie.
Yeah.
I think Jim Jordan, you always see him carrying around his jacket, right? And then when he goes on the floor, he puts it on.
I don't think I've ever seen him like face to face with it on.
Right. But he carries it around with him because I guess especially when he's walking through the floor, because you're supposed to wear a sports coat, when you're on the floor. So I think that's kind of why you see that trend as to why now you're right. I think you go into offices and you'll see, people with slacks on, but, they might be wearing a polo shirt or they're wearing like a camp shirt or like no sports coat, no tie at all.
Yeah.
Which to me is, I think it's great. I think it's a lot more comfortable. I would love if we could do that.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to go down to like where the senator from Pennsylvania is, but I wouldn't mind a more casual kind of dress, in the floor. And I think it is kind of fitting with the trends that you are kind of seeing with the rest of America.
Totally. And it's hot here.
It is hot. It's going to get really hot here.
Yeah.
In a couple of weeks, but and I think you talked about AOC, but she kind of has the thing that she was talking to us about it. She actually uses a service where they like send her clothes.
Yeah, I do that.
Yeah, they'll send her clothes and then she wears them for a while and then sends them back and they send her new stuff. I guess how does that work for you?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of them, but it's a clothing rental service. You can I get 6 items a month, and you pay and you get a box of them, and then you just put it back in the box and ship it back. But a bunch of the younger women members do it. I did a story, I think a month ago now, on how that has kind of evolved fashion on the Hill, because work clothes are so expensive, but now, and I feel like men can get away with wearing the same suit every day, whereas women's work clothes are a lot more like statement pieces. And so I think that these clothing services has kind of elevated and changed women's fashion and politics for sure.
Yeah. You ever get items where you're like, oh, I really like that. I'm gonna keep this one for a while.
This one, I'm wearing a skirt that I rented and I kept it. Yep.
You have the option to buy them afterwards?
Yeah, and it's since it's already worn, they're at a discounted rate, which is also really nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And is it more of a, I guess this would have to be a question for you personally, but is it more of a fashion thing, or is it like the sustainability side of it, or is it a combination of them?
I would say like a combination of everything. It definitely saves money from buying clothes. I will say sometimes, since I started the outfit videos, I do get stressed getting ready for work because I'm like, I already made an outfit video in this outfit. I can't wear this outfit again. And it gets exhausting because I have to rewear clothes. I can't not rewear clothes. Work clothes are expensive. So it's helped with that. It's helped with cost saving. It's obviously good for the environment because I feel like we live in a world now where people just buy so much.
Right.
And that's kind of not a newer thing, but a new-ish thing that it's helped with that. And then also it makes life a lot easier. And I don't ever feel tired of my closet, which is nice.
Yeah, no, I've gotten into it a little bit more because my partner, she's like an environmental sustainability major and she's into fashion as well. And so like I had no clue like how detrimental the fast fashion industry is to like the climate and what's going on in the world. But also like I never really thought about like what alternatives would be. Like a clothing swap never even came to mind. I was just like, if I need a new shirt, like I'm gonna go to Target and buy a new
Yeah.
shirt. I'm not gonna like go and like talk to one of my friends and be like, hey, do you have any clothes that you don't wear? I'll give you a shirt that I don't wear anymore. Or like, just going on those exchanges. It's really cool to see like even apps and social media kind of promoting that too. And I'm also interested in just seeing how our generation, going back to kind of Maxwell Frost and AOC a little bit, is going to change fashion on the Hill. I think Maxwell Frost in particular, the one image that I always have of him is in like black pants and the white button up with
Yeah.
the sleeves folded up.
Yep.
And I think that's a perfect casual fit. And so, yeah, I'm definitely excited to see how young members come in and switch it up, especially with the social media influencers that might be in Congress in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Max is a great guy. He's a great young man and stuff. I don't know if you know, he's like a drummer.
Yeah.
Very, very talented drummer.
Yeah.
And that kind of like blew my mind when I saw that, right? But I think we do need to get him a tailor to kind of tighten his things up a little bit and kind of get a little more trim and kind of so it fits a little bit better on him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
No,
need
it's really cool to see the way that their styles are evolving. Like I think of Maxwell Frost, but then I also think of Greg Kassar. He wears his bolo tie,
Yeah.
being from Texas, and I just think that their style is pretty stylized for like where they're from. Which honestly, that's one of my favorite things about doing the outfit videos with members. A lot of times, members are wearing things made in their district, which is really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Representative, if you were to wear a fit specifically just to represent the people of your district, what are you throwing on?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things I think you could do, right? I think it gets California, you got the sunshine, so definitely I think like shorts would be something that would definitely represent my district. And like I said, when I'm not, when I'm kind of like on the unofficial side, I like to put on some shorts and like whether a polo or a t-shirt just to kind of keep it more casual. So I think that would definitely kind of do there. But I think we have a lot of car club communities and stuff right there. There are different car clubs in the area and stuff that they kind of dress a certain way, have a certain style to them that would kind of, I think, be fitting of my district. But I like, when I'm in California, I wear like a lot of like camp shirts, right? Just kind of like, short sleeve, kind of button down shirts, straight around the waist. Just kind of very casual, but looks very nice, very neat. And, it depends on what, a lot of events that I'll go to in my district, right? I don't wear suits. I don't wear like a sports coat. I kind of go more casual because I think that is kind of, definitely depending on the event. I think that's kind of what it calls for, right? So there was I remember kind of reading this thing about Sam Rayburn, who's longtime Speaker of the House, about how like in D.C. Whenever he was in D.C., he would be in the suit, being driven around in the limousine. But whenever he was back in his district, back in Texas, it was always now it was back on jeans, the cowboy hat, driving the old pickup truck, right? Kind of befitting like his area. That's that's how people were in his district, so that's how he kind of dressed there. But I think that's kind of there. I think when you kind of keep it casual and stuff, when you're back home, it does kind of make it a lot more comfortable for people to kind of approach you and talk to you and things like that. So I do like to keep it casual when I'm in the district.
Yeah, I like the outfit that you threw on for the Fighting Oligarchy tour.
Yeah.
With the sunglasses and everything, that was a clean outfit. It's also been a trend in our generation too. I would call that a dad fit. And that's like those have been coming back too. The dad fits have been a huge comeback.
The dad fit, is that what it, oh my God.
Not an
I don't know
insult.
if that's an insult or a compliment.
It is not. No,
Yeah.
I will purposefully go like thrifting with my girlfriend, and I'll be like, "Does this look like something that like a dad would wear, like a pair of shoes or something?" And she's
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, that's clean." She's
the
like,
chunky white sneakers.
"Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, you know, it's funny is I do like, I mean, I'm wearing sneakers right now, right? Some kind of nicer dress type sneakers, but you know, I do like my white shoes, right? I do, you know, if I'm wearing shorts, I'm probably wearing white shoes, white tennis shoes, I should say. But it's just kind of a, like you said, like a clean kind of look, right? I don't know if I could say a brand. Can I say a brand on
yeah,
here?
sure,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah."
I mean,
Not sponsored.
too typical of Southern California, right? I dress a lot in Tommy Bahama, you know, which, as I've been told, is a dad look, right? So, but you know, it's kind of nice. It's casual. They're comfortable. So, I think that's the most important. The most important thing about I think fashion, right, is you got to be comfortable. Right? If it's not comfortable, then like why the hell are you wearing it?
Yeah, Tommy Bahama, writing it down so I can get some more dad fits.
Yeah.
I have a question here that I have to ask because I want to get a clip. And if we want to avoid it, we can. But this is for both of you. Who's the worst dressed on the hill?
You know, I don't know, right? And I'm not gonna. I don't think I could point somebody out and say like, oh, it's this person or that person. But I will say there are a few people who look like they just wake up in the morning, kind of just throw whatever on and don't really kind of care about what they look. You know, baggy pants, very you know, baggy coat. Yeah, it's just kind of very. It looks sloppy, right? And to me, that's just kind of. I don't know if that's my mother's influence, kind of. You know, going back from when I was a little kid, that you know, just don't. It's fine to be comfortable. It's fine to kind of dress, but either just don't look sloppy. And you know, I will say that there's a few people on there when you kind of look at them. Sometimes they're very sloppy, and that's just like a look they just never really kind of want.
Yeah. I don't, yeah, not, I wouldn't say like any specific names come to mind. I think if
Yeah.
I sat on it, I could make a pretty good list. But you can tell on the Hill that people went into politics and not fashion,
Yeah.
for sure. But I would say that's what people like about my videos is that they aren't well dressed a lot of the time. But yeah, I would not say that people get elected to Congress for their fashion choices. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say the name on everyone's mind. Marjorie Taylor Greene is just a terrible. I'm just kidding. Sorry. I did have to. Well, I'm not kidding, but you know, Marjorie Taylor Greene is fine. She actually interesting. You brought up Rich McCormick earlier. Rich McCormick is my representative. I'm back home in
Okay.
Georgia right now, and Marjorie Taylor Greene went to the high school that I would have gone to. I decided to go to a different high school here in my county, but she actually graduated from there, and I feel like it kind of knowing the high school, it makes sense. But you know, one of Forsyth County's own, you know, representing the district right above me, literally. So it's definitely. I haven't seen her do anything that is Georgia specific in terms of her outfit. She did wear that big ass coat to Joe Biden's State of the Union and the MAGA hat. So it's definitely an outfit, but yeah, no, I'm hesitant to say that anyone in particular is like actually the worst dressed because I think it is something that is so subjective.
Yeah.
Like the one that I loved for a while when I was younger, and I like kind of now really don't like is the way that Fetterman dresses. Like I loved the Carhartt and all of that, and I did like the casual appeal of it.
Mhm.
But like now, I feel like as times have kind of changed, I feel like it's kind of that was like a good COVID fit. Like
Yeah.
it was nice during COVID and everything, but like yeah, it does kind of it's just interesting to always see him with the exact same outfit on
Yeah.
all the time.
I think that with him though too, it goes back to strategy. I think that he's an incredible strategist as a politician. And in DC, I think that we hear a lot of that flack. But then I go back and I hear people in Texas or across the country, Democrats and Republicans, and I think that to an extent it's kind of perceived well. I think that at first there was kind of that iffiness, but I don't know. Whenever I've left DC recently, I've been talking to a lot of people, and I've heard really good things about him and about him dressing like that from both sides, which has been a really interesting shift because I remember whenever he first got elected, I just got into politics and I was hearing more of like the negative feedback. And I haven't been hearing that as much recently.
Yeah, I think that's, definitely the different kind of silos you live in, right? I think, we are definitely in a silo
Yeah.
here, right? Where that is just not kind of something that you do there. But, but like you said, right out there in America where it's, oh, that's cool that he's kind of dressing like that, right? He's throwing away the trend or, he's just going out on his own and doing his own thing rather than kind of being like everybody else. And so it does kind of hit different, chords and things like that out there in America where they people do like that, right?
Yeah.
And, when we're here, it's just like you're in a silo and it's like, well, why aren't you wearing a suit and tie like everybody else, right?
And I mean, it's memorable. Like we're sitting here and we can probably name a majority of U.S. senators, but most people can't even name their 2 U.S. senators.
Right.
So whenever they see something like that, it kind of just clicks for them and they remember him.
Whether he's your senator or not.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. It's probably one of the few senators that everybody can name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would you say your favorite brand to wear is, Lauren?
I would have to think. I do love Abercrombie. I think that their work clothes are just like very clean cut, always good, always fit well. I wouldn't say that they're my favorite in terms of holding up because we wear work clothes every single day. I think that most people at this point don't wear work clothes 5 days a week, so they don't hold up as long as I would like, but I just think that it's always safe and reliable especially for stuff on the Hill.
Yeah, that makes sense. What are your safety fallbacks, Representative, if you're looking to buy a suit? Where are you going? I know we had talked about this before a little bit, but
Yeah, I have my guy that I use back in Southern California. David August is the name of the company where I go to get my suits, and it's once you go custom and tailor to fit or made to fit. It's hard to go back.
Yeah, they look great.
It is definitely hard to go back because they're made to fit you and they look really nice. And he's kind of been my guy that I've been going to like for years now.
he's the one that gets Conor McGregor off it. Conor McGregor.
Oh.
He's the guy. He does Conor McGregor. He does. I think he's done some stuff for Joe Rogan. He's got a bunch of stuff. I mean, he's made like things for like Shaq. A bunch of former. I think he's got a bat signed by Steve. Usually, if he's got like a sports item from you, because he's made a suit for you.
Nice.
But he's got a lot of sports memorabilia in his thing. He's got he's actually got a belt from Conor McGregor. He's got like Shaq shoes. He's got Michael Strahan from Hall of Famer, Good Morning America. He's done some stuff for him as well. So but yeah.
What's your favorite piece that he's done for you? If you could describe it, is it just like a simple suit or?
I don't know. I mean, they're all kind of the same in the sense that like how they fit and everything. But I think it's the patterns. Like this one, actually, this is a nice one that I wore today, and then there's another one that's kind of similar to it, but it's black and it's got gray pinstripes or the check big boxes kind of going through it. I think when he can kind of get me to wear kind of the non-traditional kind of like instead of like just a straight like dark pinstripe or gray or blue pinstripe or kind of but different kind of patterns and stuff are the ones that are kind of cool. And then sometimes this one doesn't have a lining, but some of the linings you can put inside the suits are kind of cool too as well.
Yeah, that's always my favorite. I'm a big sports guy, and when the drafts come around for all the different sports, you get to see all the different like cool custom linings.
Yeah.
Suits. We're gonna have to start doing that on Congress too. We'll have a red carpet and we'll just have
Seriously.
right? Lauren, you'll host it.
I would love that. That would be awesome.
A great show. Well, as we're wrapping up here, I have a question for you, which is just what are your do's and don'ts? Like, what would you say is like your biggest thing? I was trying to think of like different things in fashion that I would consider like do or that might be controversial, like socks and sandals, like having, an excessive amount of buttons unbuttoned. What are your do's and don'ts for fashion?
I'm trying to think. Other than heels, I don't think that open-toed shoes should be worn, especially at work. Like, I do think heels are an exception, but open-toed shoes are complete. I don't even really wear open-toed heels to the hill because that's just not feasible on the hill. But just in general, I would say that is a don't for me at work.
Keep the dogs away.
I would have to think about that. I'm not a skinny jeans person. That is probably a don't for me personally. I wouldn't say it's a don't for everybody, but there's like a list for me of things that I don't like that I think are coming back in style.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that I feel like are coming back in style.
Totally. Yeah.
The one for me that I've noticed is like kind of the pinstripe suits and like the different patterns. I feel like it used to be like super simple, or like there was this era where it was kind of like more simple, but like polka dots are making a comeback. We got pinstripes making a comeback. So yeah, I would second the no toes out at work. It's probably a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
And skinny jeans too. I have a bad relationship with skinny jeans because growing up, my mom was kind of similar in the sense, Representative Cisneros, where she always wanted me looking like really clean and cut. One thing she loved was skinny jeans and like a polo or something. And I just can't do it anymore. It's just like I have PTSD from being a kid and just having to put on skinny jeans that were a little bit too skinny. So it's interesting to see what's coming back and what's staying in the past. One that I did do is the mullet. I had a mullet like a year ago, 2 years ago.
Oh God, hopefully that never comes back.
I feel like they're still kind of in Texas. They're still in.
Oh God.
It kind of all,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we want to see the mullets come back. I don't think we want to see Jerry curls come back.
Jerry
Or even the pompadour, right? You don't know what a Jerry curl is?
Mm-mm.
So that was kind of like it's almost like you would get like a perm, and then but it would kind of like think of Ice Cube back in the days in his NWA days.
Okay.
Yeah, where they would kind of have it wet, but it was kind of like curly hair, right? Yeah.
I
And
see.
it would always look wet all the time. Yeah.
What-
Watch the actually, I've mentioned movies. I've dropped some movies right here, right? Watch Eddie Murphy's Coming to America, and they'll talk about that.
I'll add it to the list.
And that'll be there.
I'll add it
The pompadours too, right? The people used to kind of have the hair kind of like the front of their head kind of coming out this way. I don't think we want to see that come back anymore. But I got a question too for you, Lauren. I mean, obviously you have nice fashion sense and stuff like that. But was that something you were really into before, or just did doing the Capitol Fit kind of just make you more kind of into fashion, where now you're just, like you said, this fashion person where it's like, oh my God, now I got to look this, the pressure of it all, right? But were you always into fashion? Was it something that you always kind of did and kind of focused on, or did it just kind of become because you just started doing these Capitol Fit videos?
I would say it more just became, like, I've always paid attention to the way I dressed, but it was not something that I was reading news articles on, or much less thought that I would be writing news articles on.
Right.
I was always into pop culture, and I felt like this was kind of that bridge. I really like journalism and politics for like what it stands for, but I've always just kept up with pop culture, so this was kind of that bridge of my hobbies for me. But I wouldn't say that it was fashion in particular. So now that I'm kind of in there, I've had more fun with it. There's this guy on Twitter, his name's Derek Guy, and he really analyzes specifically men in politics, the way that they dress. And he has threads, and it'll be like 50 tweets just analyzing every little detail of their outfit. And I find myself in these Twitter threads just reading like a super in-depth analyzation of what JD Vance wore one day, which is, I don't think I ever would have found myself reading. But it's been really fun to just get to know people through what they wear, and like make relationships with members over stuff that they care about rather than just news of the day.
What have you learned about somebody from kind of just, like you said, just from what they wear, or what they tell you about why they're wearing it, or how, why it's important to them? What has that taught you, or what have you learned about, individuals from that?
I feel like it breaks. It's hard, sometimes as a journalist, it's hard to break barriers, especially with members, because we are asking y'all hard questions that maybe you're having a bad day, or maybe you don't want to be asked. And I can see where sometimes y'all don't want to talk to us. And I completely understand that. But whenever people are able to talk about something from their district, or most people get dressed with some intentionality and learning the why behind what they wear or why they wear it kind of breaks down that barrier of just asking them the hard-hitting questions of the day. So I think that it's been really good for my relationship with members to kind of break that barrier and understand where they come from and like why they dress the way that they do, which leads into deeper conversations about policy, about news of the day. So that's probably been the coolest part of doing all of it.
Great.
Yeah, and my last question here is obviously outside of Representative Cisneros, who else are you trying to do a little fit check with? Or what are your top three? Who are you looking to have on next?
So before I did Pete Buttigieg last week, I would have put him number one. That was super cool because he was number one on my list. I really wanted to do Mitt Romney whenever he was in office because whenever I was growing up, that was the first presidential election that I was really cognizant of. So obviously Romney and Obama would be two of my top ones just because to me, I feel like in Congress now I get to know the members, so it's less of a celebrity to me.
Right.
Whereas Mitt Romney and Obama are still like celebrities to me. So I think that the two of them would be really cool to do just because that was the first presidential election I was cognizant for. Member-wise, I think I really want to do John Ossoff just because he's so popular amongst the younger voters. And I kind of want to start breaking into governors that are possible presidential candidates for 28. That's what I've been thinking about recently.
I mean, it's you have it right. I think you can. It's obviously I think you're blowing up, and everybody's kind of checking out these feeds. And
Thank you.
But you could good luck to you in doing this. But you might be one of the stops, right? We got to go talk to Lauren
That'd be awesome.
about what we're wearing, on the presidential campaign.
That would be a dream come true.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. You heard it here first. In 2028, we're looking for the Lauren on Capitol Hill tech debate. Who's got the better fit on?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'll host it.
Would that not be awesome? Like after the debates, it's like, okay, we got
That'd
to
be
pop
awesome.
in with Lauren.
Yeah.
Like, okay, why did you wear this, and what was your thinking behind
Be
this?
awesome.
Yeah.
Wolf Blitzer doing a poll afterwards.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on today, Lauren. And Representative, thank you, of course, for joining us as always. It was a great conversation. Nice to talk about something that is rather apolitical, but still have that political, kind of, the politics of it overshadowing it. So it's really cool what you're doing. Keep up the great work. We, need more young people engaging in politics in more creative ways and connecting us with our politicians. So obviously, even though it's something as simple as a fit check, I personally really do believe that it has larger implications and has a greater impact than something, than what most people I think would say a fit check would do.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you for being here.